Up next, we have our own Steve Skelton going to be talking to us about broiler chickens. So Steve was raised on a dairy farm where his family produced hay, corn, tobacco, hogs, sheep, all types of fowl, and had a large garden. He has been the coordinator for the mobile processing unit at KSU since its inception around 19 years ago. He works with small, limited resource farmers to assist with gardening, poultry, rabbits, and other livestock. So let's give him a hand.
Good morning, everybody. I'm not sure quite where my presentation is at. Do I use this changer up here? Okay. I'm going to talk to you about broiler chickens, meat chickens for your homesteads. The main thing is you never want to start out too big, whether it be the broiler chickens, the meat, the laying hens or anything. Start out small where you're comfortable. Then as you get better acquainted with it, know more about it, then build yourself up. But don't start too big. You're just going to let yourself down for a lot of heartache. At the end of my presentation, I do have some things to show you what you can make versus buying, different types of brooders. I have a fence demo set up outside and some other things over there that we'll talk about later. One of the main things you got to remember when you buy any type of poultry, whether it be the broiler or the egg layers, always buy them from a certified hatchery that has an NPIP number. The NPIP stands for Natural Poultry Improvement Program. When you have the outbreak of the avian influenza, you can, if you've already got your birds and they come to inspect your flock, which KDA will do, and other veterinarians, you can show them where you bought the birds. If you've got birds that you hatch and they come from an NPIP approved flock, they're NPIP also. But if you've got just a bunch of birds you've randomly bought, contact Kentucky Department of Agriculture. They will come and inspect your farm. They will bleed your birds and turkeys, and they will give you an NPIP number associated with your farm. And that is a very strong selling point if you sell at farmers market or anybody, because they know your birds come from a healthy environment. So that is a very important thing. Before you get any type of chicks in, always have your brooder already set up. Use pine or poplar shavings. Do not use any type of sawdust. Have your light on. Already have your water, your feed in the brooder. Always make sure you've got a rough surface for the chicks to stand on. If you don't, you'll get spraddle leg. I always use just cloth towels. When they're done, wash them, then wash them in the washing machine. I have no washing machine in my garage that I use. Don't think you're going to put them in your wife's washing machine, because it's bad, fellas. Let me know. But it just has to be for a couple, 3 days till they get used to the feed, or you can take a egg carton, a cardboard egg carton, put feed in it. I also have feeding trays over there that you can put paper towels down in and feed them. It keeps all their feed in one place. And feed right now is pretty expensive. You want a pretty well draft-free place that you're going to brood your chickens. You don't want a whole lot of wind on them, but you want it well ventilated. Don't have something that's completely closed up airtight. Make sure they got some type of ventilation, because that'll greatly help them. When you first get your chicks, the main temperature is 95 degrees where that chick's at. I have a piece of a 2x4 and a thermometer mounted at 2x4. Lay that in the brooder and adjust your lights to that. Then each week, as that chick is alive, raise your lights up 5 degrees. Typically at 3 weeks, we put our broiler chickens out on pasture. But if it's windy like this or a whole lot of rain and stuff, we'll hold them up till the weather's a little bit better. You don't want to put them out. The laying chickens, they're a little bit harder than the Cornish birds are. I prefer the Cornish chickens over the Freedom Rangers, Rainbow Rangers, whatever name they go by. They're the same bird, but they all have different names. In 6 weeks on the broilers, 6 to 7 weeks, you can have a marketable bird ready to process. On the Ranger bird, it's anywhere from 10 weeks to 14 weeks. So that you've just got more money tied up in them. They have a smaller carcass, the breast is smaller, the bird is smaller. And the dual type chickens, like the layered chickens, they say dual purpose. I've got a carcass back here I'll show you in a minute. And there's just not a whole lot to them. All they're good for is chicken and dumplings or chicken and rice or whatever. But they're not much good for selling. They look really bad. The bedding needs to be about 3 or 4 inches deep. You don't want it to get wet. You want it to stay dry. So if they get their feeder, always set their water on a board or in a little tray like I've got over there, something that will contain that water. You don't want that bedding getting wet because they'll start getting ammonia smell pretty quick. Anything when you feed them, make sure you pull that wetness out. Throw it away and put a little fresh in. What we feed here and what I feed at my farm is nothing but Baghdad feed. We feed a Brumley mix, and it's a very good feed. They have Brumley, and then they have a Brumley GMO, and then Baghdad has their feed recipes. What the Brumley mix is, it's a gentleman that used to raise a lot of chickens in Shelby County, egg layers, and he developed this feed out of a book called A $1 Hen. Years and years ago. The book is wrote back in 1940. So he developed this feed ration and everything grows on it really well. So I don't know where everybody's at, but Baghdad is our preferred. The farm here feeds all their feed from Baghdad. Don't try to mix it yourself because you're going to slack in some kind of vitamin, nutrient, or something, and these broilers can't do that. They have to have a high protein feed. We start them out on the Chick Start and Grow, the Brumley Chick Start and Grow, and we leave them on that. We don't change them. If you go to changing feed on any of the birds, you'll cause them to get pasty tail. Some of them will get diarrhea and they will die. So we just leave them on the same feed till we get ready to process them. Okay, where'd he go? I just seen a thing yesterday on Facebook, I think it was. A gentleman had a brooder made, and he had a bunch of chicks in it, and he had a light. He didn't have the light secure. It fell down into the straw, caught on fire, killed all these baby chicks, almost caught his barn on fire. So always make sure your brooder light is secure. I've got clips on mine, and then I also put a zip tie on there to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I use the red bulbs. They got the clear bulb and they got a red bulb. I use the red bulb because it doesn't promote pecking. The clear bulb will promote pecking in the chicks, whatever type of chick it is. Here's why I was talking about the temperature. That 95 degrees is very important. Now, if you're going to raise turkeys, it's a whole different game. The turkeys, the commercial breed turkey or the heritage breed turkeys, they need to stay at that 95 degrees for about 2 weeks. And they have to be on a 26 to 28% quail protein feed, grower feed. You can find the older or the less protein feed as they get older. But turkeys are soft-hearted. When I started raising turkeys here, I never dealt with the commercial breeds until I started working here. They are very soft-hearted. They're timid. They will die. You can sit there and look at him and look like he's perfectly healthy, and next thing you know, he's going to fall over and he's dead. So put it on a high-protein feed and leave it. And an old gentleman in Indiana that raises these things for a living says you got to look at them 2 or 3 times a day just to make sure there's not something that's out of sync with them. Just check on them. I've got one brooder out there. I also raise quail. I don't know if y'all ever have any dealings with quail, but they're about that tall when they're born. And when they just spastic, they go everywhere. So I took a 265-gallon water tote, cut me a hole in it about 8 inches up from the bottom, and that's what I brood my quail in. There's no reason it wouldn't work for the broiler chicks or laying chicks or whatever. I got a door in it, put the wood shavings in it. I took the cap off and I adjust my heat lamp through that hole. Any extra heat or any humidity or anything that's in that goes right out the hole at the top. When you're done, when you take them out, open that door, clean it all out, wash it down with Clorox and slosh it around, let it drain, open that valve. And I will tell you, make sure that valve's turned off, because I didn't do it with them quail, and some of them little suckers found that hole and shot right out on me. So you gotta make sure that valve's shut. But it's a good one. I've also got a little kids swimming pool outside that I've got wire around. And the good thing about that, I've got a rod that runs through it, and I can adjust that rod for the heat. Sometimes you might have to put 2 lights in there, sometimes you get by with 1. And a lot of people are using feed troughs. Down here in the poultry barn, we use a great big feed troughs, because we usually have batches of 50 in them. So we use a great big water tank. But that right there will work just as well. It's easy to clean. You can pull it outside, wash it. Anytime you brood them, when you take an old set of chicks out, wash it real good and always sanitize it. Sanitize your feeders, waters, everything, and keep them clean. Again, it goes to the 95-degree temperature for the chicks. Like I said, I got the little 2x4 with thermometer on it, and also I bought a little digital thermometer off of Amazon. I think it was like $5 that I put on top of it that I can see, and it just hangs down in there. So that really helps. And I've also got one of the little ceramic, on real bad cold nights, I've got one of the little ceramic heaters, one of the real small ones. Used to, when I was a kid, we called them milk room heaters, but this is a lot smaller than that. I'll even put that in there where to blow air and help circulate in there to keep them warm. Because you don't want them, if they get cold, they'll all come together, pile up, and the ones on the bottom will suffocate. And another good way to make sure you got the temperature right, if all your chicks are huddled up underneath the light or piled up, they're too cold. If they're evenly dispersed in your brooder, the temperature's just right for them. Whoop, too far. This is a chart. They handed out some paperwork that I printed out. A lot of the printing's not real good, but that's our printer that we have. This will tell you the height of the heat lamp bulb, the 125 watt heat lamp bulb, what you should be raising it up to get the proper heat. And what I do in my chick water is I always take a gallon of water and put about 3/4 a cup of sugar in it, shake it up, and it's room temperature. That just kind of, and when the hatchery mails you the birds, they will put like a little green gel pack in there. If you've got birds in the mail, you'll see that green in there. That's just a gel type feed that they put in there to help sustain the bird while they're shipping. They ship them out when they're 1 day old, and they can live 3 days on their yolk sac. So that's why they try to get them to you as quick as they can, and most of them always guaranteed delivery within 3 days. But go ahead and have your brooder completely set up for them. Lighting, the light we use down here, they have natural light during the day, and at night we just when we leave here at 4:30, I just cut the light off. They don't really need it because they're going to have that light bulb in there. But laying poults or chicks, sometimes you need to leave a light on for them just to help promote the growth, but you need to have a timer on it to go off, and that's another thing when they're laying. You can set that light. They need 14 hours of light a day in order to keep laying eggs. Never let them run out of feed, never let them run out of water. Because when if you let them run out of water or feed, when you do put feed in there, they'll pile up on each other and they'll start cutting and scratching their backs up and everything, and they get sores on them. And that chick will find just that little speck of blood, and he'll start pecking at them. And they'll just keep on, and they'll finally kill him. Like I said, I've got different waters over there and feeders to show you when I'm done speaking. I'll show you them. Jonathan, won't change. Here's the pens we typically use. Doggone it. And you've also got plans for those over the hoop houses. And what I done, a gentleman in South Dakota had those built, but he had them built where they're low to the ground where he could put 100 birds in them. This, you can get 65 to 75 birds in. And what I done, I'm 6'2", so I kept pulling it in until I could walk in it. I don't know about you, but when you go get those broilers, I don't want to be down on my hands and knees in the manure and everything. So I made this, the feeder and the water hangs in there. You can hang a water bucket on the outside. The gravity feeds the water inside. You've got a top on it with a float. You just fill the bucket on the outside, it goes in. Only thing you have to go in for is feed. Now these birds are contained. They can't go anywhere, they're contained. But if you use the poultry netting, these birds are dumb. They will not go back in that pen on their own. They will get to the door, sit down, and that's where they'll roost. So in the evenings, and they're very vulnerable because they're white, to owls at night. So you'll have to go there, put feed in there at night for them, and they'll go in and get it. You can have a little feed trough outside for them and let them eat a little bit longer during the day, but if they're out on grass, they're not going to eat a whole lot of feed. They like little clovers, ladina clover, white top clover, chlorine clover, red clover. They like the clover better than the blade grass. Turkeys like blade grass better. But then just make sure they're all in. You can't get nothing in. This pen is very easy moved by one person. You've got a rope that runs to it. You just get a hold of it and back up with it. Sometimes you have to have a person in the back to kind of hit the back of the wire to shoo the birds up so that you won't run over and break their legs. But they will move forward. What's on the bottom of that door is an old roll baler belt, and that just helps keep the door completely shut. And what I've done is I put it all the way across the front and raised them up about 2 inches, my front board and back board, and I put that on there. That way, if I do run over one, the legs aren't underneath the board. The black belt has got them pinned, but you can go get them out and you're not going to break their legs. These birds were, I think, 4.5 weeks old, something like that. And that little feeder right there in the middle, what it has in it is grower grit. These birds need grit just like all the chickens do. They need it to help digest their feed. So we put grower grit in there, and we just leave it in there. They don't require oyster shells or anything like that, just grower grit. This is where we moved them through a session. This farm here used to be a cattle farm. It was a tobacco and corn farm. And now where we have gardens is where I've had chickens over the years, and they grow really good gardens. But what I'll do is I'll take a chain harrow and run over that ground and break all that matting up where rainwater can get in, wash the nutrients in the ground. And I won't run nothing back over that ground for 3 months. I'll let that ground sit there. I'll just move over. And that's a good thing about using the netting with the laying hens or the broilers or anything. You can set up a pen, you can run your perimeter of that fence, and then when you get ready to move your birds over, after you've moved that pen all over the whole thing, just make one move of the wire and you got a whole other pen, and just keep moving like that going on down. You don't have to move everything. Okay. Now, when you handle these meat birds, their bone structure they will grow so fast that their bone structure cannot keep up with their body. So if they go to flopping their wings, they're going to break their wing bones. It makes for a very ugly carcass. So when you go to get those birds, make sure, we always box ours up when they're at roost. Pick them up, have a top door crate. Don't try putting them in a dog toad or a rabbit cage or anything like that. Make you some cages. There's a couple of good places on Atra that gives you the plans to make your own chicken crates. Atra is a very great website, a very good source to use if you have chickens, goats, hogs, or anything. They have publications. You can print them off there, or you can send them a message and they will print them off to you and send them to you. But they have everything regarding every kind of livestock you got, buildings, or anything. It's a very good website.
What website was that?
Atra. Yep. ATTRA. The birds typically have to be off feed 8 to 10 hours. Now here's where I had the biggest problem running the mobile processing unit. Most people think that 8 to 10 hours is from the time it gets dark till the next morning. It's not, because that chicken is at roost and his body metabolism, he's slowed down, so he's not digesting his food. If they bring chickens into me to process and they have food in the crop, we can't process them. We have to stop, because if you bust that crop in that bird, it's considered a salvage bird. You can take it home and eat it, but you can't sell it because the bird's been contaminated. So we have a whole different washing process of that, a whole different chill tank to put it in, and that's taking your profit out. So make sure you take the feed withdrawal during the day, 8 to 10 hours. Turkeys are 12 to 14 hours. Don't get soft-hearted in the middle of the night, feel sorry for them, put them feed in there, because it's just going to mess you up. Now keep them plenty of water. Never let them be without water. They need to keep water all the time. And another thing, these Cornish birds, when it gets real hot and humid, they will have a heart attack. And what they do, they squat down and they just springboard back and they turn purple. That bird's dying. You can set him up a half a dozen times, he's going to flip over, he's going to die, so that's something you throw away. And what we do, what I found, is the northern birds seem like we have worse problem out of them with leg problems and the heart attacks. So we've been buying all our birds out of Ray City, Georgia, at a hatchery called Bob's Biddies. We haven't had any leg problems, we haven't had the heart attack problem, anything. They're a very small family-owned hatchery. They are registered through NPIP. They have egg-laying chicken called a Navajan. I have 6 of them down here, and they lay a real nice big brown egg. So they also have those. They have Nicholas white turkeys. They have in the past, and that's where we've got them. We had really good luck out of them. We bought 20 last year, and we processed 18. So that's pretty good odds on turkeys. I don't know, if you process them at home and you're close to us, I have a scalder and a plucker. I'll be more than glad to let you borrow. It's just a little small plucker and a scalder. Call me, email me is the best way to get in touch with me. And we'll set up a date. You can come borrow the items, take them home, use them, bring them back. Bring them back in the same shape you got them. I do have a paper that you have to sign, and I'll get a copy of your driver's license, and all that paper says that you do have possession of our property, and that if anything breaks on it or anything, you will be responsible for the repairs. But I have no problem letting you borrow them. That's one reason I bought the smaller stuff, to let the smaller people have them. I have a lady, every year she has a laying flock just for her family, and she sells a few eggs to help pay for feed. And every fall, she brings her old laying hens in. We process them. We get them back down to 40 degrees, and then we just put them in coolers and ice them down. She takes them home, puts them in a great big lard kettle, cooks them all down. She cans the meat, she cans the broth, and then she puts all the bones and everything back out on her garden and tillers it in. When you take your old spent laying hens, you're only going to get $2 or $3 for them more than likely, because they look really rough. So that's an alternative, and she raises meat birds too. Jesse, will you go there in that big refrigerator and get that chicken I got laying right in the middle of in the kitchen? Okay.
Hi. So I see that you use 2 cattle panels for this particular pen, but you know where we live, I'm on about 40 to 45 acres, and in the past we've dealt with predators like weasels getting into really, really, really small places, and we just seem like we can't get them out. Is there anything else like you would recommend for a smaller diameter of a fence or anything to kind of prevent that from happening?
I don't recommend the 1-inch chicken wire, because a cat can get through it, a coon can get through it, and a coon is going to be your worst enemy for any of your rabbits, chickens, or anything. I was losing baby rabbits last year just constantly, and that coon was getting in there, and he was hanging over the back of my cages and fishing them little babies through that 1-inch by 2-inch wire. So I had to put me a board all the way across my whole cages. My cages are 9 cages long. But on the weasel, use a good stout wire. Do you have cats or dogs that roam? Okay, well, take you a box. If you have weasels, take you a box and drill you a 2-inch hole in it. In that hole, make the top where you can take it on and off, and put you a 1.5 steel trap in there, preferably a long spring. Put that top back on it and put a piece of old bloody liver or anything in there. That weasel will go right in there, and you got him. It'll close right around his body, and he's dead. Raccoons, I have dog-proof traps over here I'll show you. There's 2 different types of them. There's the pull type, and then there's the push-pull type. The pull type is what I recommend if you have cats around your property, because that coon has an ambidextrous paw. He'll reach in there and get that food and go to pull on, he'll get caught. If a dog or a cat sticks its paw in there and tries to get your bait, it won't go off on him. But now the push-pull, it will. And I trap in the wintertime, so I use the push-pulls down along the creeks or wherever I'm at, around ponds and stuff. So that's a big thing. For foxes, coyotes, I use snares. If you have a dog, and it's a good, calm dog, if he gets caught in a snare, he's going to think he's in a leash, and he'll just sit down. The ones I use do not have locks on them. If you have a lock on that snare, when it closes up, and if that dog struggles, it's going to keep closing and tightening down around his neck, and it will kill him. But the ones I use do not have locks. They slide. So that's a good thing. But use the heavier wire, the 1x2 galvanized wire. They make it in 14 gauge and 12 gauge. They make it 1x1. But the chicken wire is just, I mean, And your worst enemy is going to be the raccoon for the wild animal, and for your worst enemy for you is going to be your dog or your neighbor's dog. If you have a neighbor's dog get in your chickens, regardless of what kind they are, take pictures of it, call your Humane Society. That's what they pay license fees for. That's what everybody pays license fees for. If your dog gets into something and kills somebody's livestock, that's what that fee goes for, is to pay you back. If that person, said, well, my dog didn't do it, you got pictures, after that you call the sheriff. And then they have to make it good. You might have to take them to small claims court. I had a man had his dog get after 5 heifers I pulled out to keep. They flipped it over the fence. He refused to pay me for it, so we had to take him to court. He wound up paying attorney fees and everything. He'd been better off just paying for the heifer. But that's the way some people are. If my dog, I have a red heeler, if she goes to some of my neighbor's house and she does something wrong, I'm going to make it right. She does it twice, shame on her. I don't care what you do. First time, let me know. The broiler chickens, we're going to have a training here on April 28th. If anybody's interested, we're going to start another list, because right now I'm at capacity of how many I can train in a day. We may have another training in the fall. Anything you process in the NPU can be sold anywhere to anybody in the state of Kentucky. Most of the people are getting anywhere from $4 to $4.25 a pound for their chickens. Now, if you take your chickens to a USDA plant, they're going to charge you so much per bird for a whole bird. If you want to keep the liver and the heart and the neck, they're going to charge you a little bit more for that. If you do cut-ups, they're going to charge you more for that. I don't care what you do. You pay the same price, 75 cents a bird. The first 50 birds is $75. Every bird over the 50 is 75 cents. We have a vacuum machine. You can buy the bags from us, or you can furnish your own bags. It's no guarantee that our vacuum sealer will work with your bags, or you can buy the bags from us at our cost, which is 22 cents. We put a label on them that has your ID number on it, has your farm name, number, the weight, total weight, price per pound, total price. Has the safe handling regulations and everything on it. On our labels, you cannot make a statement that says all natural, organic, no hormones or anything like that. We can only put on there free range or pasture poultry. If you want to make a specific statement on our label, you have to contact the Department of Health Services, giving them all your information, show them what you want your label to read. They'll look at your information, they'll tell you yes or no.